guardian guards only itself. The ones of Amon. I knew you from the start. A worthy addition to our number, Vault Hunter. Now, add his strength to your own. A portion of his power, misplaced.
As usual, in a minute or two, I'll show the build, go through everything, just pause the video as I do it to see everything I'm using. Caveat, however you say it, I want to say up front, yes, you'll see, I am using legendaries, but my point is they're not required at all. Legendaries are just extra bonuses if you want on this kind of build, but the main synergy of it does not require legendaries in any capacity. And perhaps in the future, like the best form of it won't use legendaries, period. Except maybe the primary gun. Well, see, the primary gun is really the ordnance launcher, which, yes, you want a purple roll, not a legendary. But the primary gun, if I don't use my launcher, is this one. Whatever it's called, superconductor thingy. Superconductor thingy. But the shield I'm using, which I got through a trade, and it's ridiculously OP, but it's still not the most OP. again, I feel like the most
All
OP
that has happened.
shield out there is probably a purple, actually, not a legendary, but a purple armor with double turtle and corrosive resist on it, which I know you can get. I saw some of the Reddit threads where some people were showing off that they actually got a double turtle armor roll. Although the one I saw didn't have corrosive resist. Not that it's still not ridiculously OP, but I'm like, well, if you want absolute perfection, I'm pretty sure that is the most tankiest armor you could possibly get. But the one I'm using, as you'll see, is the shield. It's the legendary shield you get off the Ripper Queen. So it's an energy shield, not armor, but that's fine because it's stronger than any armor in the game except for that roll I mentioned because of just the sheer volume it gives you, which is it has double turtle on it, and it has the legendary effect, so it also gives elemental resist against all the elements on top of it, and it has 30% cryo resist. A better roll, the perfect roll would be shock resist from that queen, but I'm like, you know what, I'll take this. I'm already feeling like I'm playing with the God mode cheat enabled anywhere in this game. I already felt that with my old shield in the old video that gave me like 57,000 shield. I still have that, but now I have this new one that gives me 94,000. That is over 14,000 shield regen every second with Onslaughter if I use Onslaughter or the status effect Scourge. By the way, I tested, and this build, you actually can use Onslaughter on it effectively too, if you decide to do that. You can keep everything the same, and instead of use Scourge, use Onslaughter. If you do that, then you'll be faster. You will have a crazy amount of shield regen because you'll get the constant 15% shield regen from Onslaughter, and you'll still get the other 15% shield regen off unleashing status effects. Which, if you use Onslaughter, you should probably, since you're not a melee build, I would say use Pyroclast, since that gives you an aurora of flame around you, which activates status to enemies near you, which gives you more shield back from the skill node, and then gives you more ammo back too. Also, it makes your ordnance launcher hit them with both cryo through Tail of the Comet and incendiary through Onslaughter. So it does both incendiary and cryo, which again means that it further activates the shield regen and ammo restoration skill node even better. So yes, you can use Onslaughter on this build and still dish out just as much punishment and be faster and get your still have an infinite, launcher. Still the same thing. Now, why am I not using it? Well, because I did test it against like Backhive just to see the damage equivalent. So I was able to kill Backhive. I use him because he's a red boss, so he's even weak to incendiary. But he's a very tanky, very annoying boss also if you don't one-shot him, which I don't, and you don't have an infinite tank like I do here. It's a good test because he does crazy damage to you. He's a good test for a tank because of the amount of damage he does. And the fact that he's also tanky himself, so he also takes a while to kill if you don't have a one-shot build. So, with Onslaughter on this build, I killed him in under 20 seconds from full by just spamming my launcher. I basically dropped down, I spammed my launcher, I used one rep kit to get my duration back, and then went back to my launcher, and I killed him in 18 or 19 seconds. I did the same on this guy on my Scourge. Exact same situation, just spamming my launcher the whole time, used one rep kit. I killed him in 21 seconds. Now I could do more testing just to see exactly how much it is, but my point is, if Onslaughter does give I tested against the training dummies, and it does increase the damage of my launcher by a substantial percentage, but not a crazy amount. But I just determined that it's not worth it, although it's definitely an alternative if Scourge is ever nerfed, or if something like that's nerfed on this build, and you realize, maybe I should use Onslaughter instead with the same build, so I can still have my infinite, ammo, but still have super tankiness in case they ever nerf maybe the invulnerability off the shield or something like that, and then it's better to use Onslaughter instead of Scourge to maintain the tankiness on this build. But Scourge is fine. Scourge is better against Backhive specifically because some enemies just rip through your shield in one hit sometimes, but that actually doesn't apply to Scourge. So if you have Onslaughter equipped, you can still have your entire shield bar ripped off you from certain hits that I'm pretty sure are just programmed to just take off a player's shield regardless in this game. However, Scourge blocks that damage too, as long as it's from the front and your vengeance meter isn't filled up, which is most of the time for this build. So, as long as my vengeance meter isn't max, which is most of the time again, and they're facing the front of me, which again, if it's a boss, I'm usually always trying to make sure that's the case, then any hit from them like that that's meant to take off your shield or armor completely, I notice does nothing still to me. Like Backhive, if he uses his Earthquake, if he charges right into me, with Scourge, I take 0 damage still. Whereas with Onslaughter, I would drop down to low health and have to go back up again. So that's also why I would use Onslaughter if the damage increase on my ordnance was a lot more, but it's not a lot more. It's a noticeable amount more, but not a crazy amount more. And Scourge is just better for base tankiness because it's like I already get a crap load of percentage based shield regen through the skill node for whenever I'm taking damage without my shield blocking it. But then the shield gives me a lot more. It gives me a different kind of tankiness on top of it, which is just total invulnerability as well, half the time, which is really nice to have. Also, again, like this is meant to be a true tank support build, so it lets me taunt the enemies. It's the only way I can draw aggro from the enemies, whereas that would not be the case if I used Onslaughter. And then I'm also debuffing the entire field, freezing the whole field, slowly whittling away fodder enemies across the whole field because of the augment I use. So it's definitely, long story short, yeah, I would still say use Scourge, but I just wanted to explain that, you actually can use Onslaughter on this build, and it would still be really OP. Still be the same build, except just using Onslaughter. It's just using the Onslaughter melee instead of the shield. You wouldn't really melee, though. You would just use Onslaughter for the bonus incendiary damage on your rocket launcher is still infinite, and then gaining a ton of more shield regen as another form of tankiness since you dropped your invincible shield. So yeah, but if you notice the changes on this build, I wanted to get go-go gadgets on my rep kit because whenever you use a rep kit, it takes off your launcher, and if you don't have maximum magazine capacity, the cooldown is based off the percentage of your magazine when you take it off. So, and even though I keep it topped off really well because of the skill node that gives me ammo off status application, sometimes, as you see here, I might be at half magazine capacity, which would ordinarily be a over 10-second cooldown I have to wait. But thanks to my rep kit, it becomes a 5-second cooldown. So that way, for the most part, there's still instances where I have to wait a bit and use my other guns, which is why those are still key, as I'll explain. But for the most part, with the go-go gadget on my rep kit 2, now I pretty much can just almost always use my missile launcher during mobbing and still maintain my infinite shield. Because here's the thing, if I could just not maintain my shield, I could just not use action skills at all, and I would still have infinite ammo on my missile launcher because it applies Tail of the Comet cryo chance and weakness. They both weakness application and the cryo application activate that percent chance for it to restore my shield and its ammo. So even if I don't have Scourge or Onslaughter active at all, I can still maintain the rocket launcher infinitely hitting things and also still be pretty much invincible because it's still restoring my shield. It's just with the action skill, I'm even tankier. And also it's just with Scourge, the taunt that it activates, especially when I'm in a mobbing area and there's a bunch of enemies around me, that also activates the chance to restore my shield and restore my ammo. So I could just not be shooting anything and still be gaining all my shield and ammo back from the taunt. So I just love this build because it's it synergizes around everything now. And yeah, maintaining the action skill forever, but then even though I take off my ordnance temporarily by using rep kits to maintain it forever, that's why we use Go-Go Gadget to mitigate that so we can still go back to our launcher quicker. So this is like having infinite duration combined with cooldown. It's just the best of both worlds that way. That's also why I still use now with caffeine in my skill tree, because even though I can maintain my shield forever during combats, There's so many instances in this game, especially when you're in co-op and you're farming bosses, where you have to go through constant load screens. Every time you go through a load screen, it resets the cooldown on your skill, which is incredibly aggravating. And even more on Amon, because Amon specifically has ridiculously long cooldowns. Like, my shield has a 60-second cooldown. So if I did not reduce its cooldown some in my tree and have the now with caffeine for rep kit stacking, I'd have to wait 60 seconds before another boss encounter every time we go through a load screen before I can get my shield back. It's just not a good thing. Because sometimes I'm in like co-op and we're just farming the boss so quickly that it's like, dude, I can't even use my skill for each boss fight. Like, come on, guys, I have to sit here and wait for it to come back now. But of course, they're not waiting for you. So again, it's for utility and convenience, if anything. So yeah, I'm willing to give up a passive in my specialization tree to keep now with caffeine still. And for that reason, I'm still missing the best rep kit. The best rep kits for this build, I guess it kind of would be a legendary, because it would be a triple bypass mini with Go-Go Gadget, because that's a lower cooldown with 3 stacks of the rep kit. And that way, if you have all 3 of them, you can just instantly get your skill back within a few seconds when it ends. But I still wouldn't say that's the best rep kit. The best rep kit is probably a purple, because I can get a purple order kit that still has 2 charges and has a lower cooldown than this 19-second one you see. I know I can get that with Go-Go Gadget, and then get something that helps its damage more. Like you can get splash damage, which increases all ordnance damage. I tested that splash damage increases my taunt damage too, as well. Fire rate would be really good. You can get that too. Elemental damage, which would basically boost all forms of my damage. So the best rep kit, so yeah, no, I still would say this build does not require a legendary, because mini triple bypass with Go-Go Gadget would definitely be a great rep kit for it. But still, the absolute best one in the future I'm going to try to get is a purple order one that has Go-Go Gadget and is a mini with a low cooldown, but also has another prefix for damage to further increase its damage every time I pop it. So that way, when I use a rep kit, I get my ordnance launcher back quickly, and I also get a damage boost to it, or a fire rate boost through the rep kit, which you can get in the future too. So yeah, that's why I still emphasize this build does not require legendaries. And if you don't have the legendary gun you see I'm using, you can always just slap on a forked beam tosser. I mean, your main guns don't matter too much because you're not even going to be using them that often. I did manage to trade for a perfect roll on the rocket launcher, but again, I was using another rocket launcher before the one you see that instead of the 2-shot fire rate, it was a fire rate extended mag with like 21,000 DPS instead of the 33 you see. Again, not nearly as good, of course, but I was still wrecking things with it. Like, I was still OP doing the same stuff on me. It just, instead of killing the boss in 30 seconds, it was more like, 50 seconds, which, yeah, shows how much better that new launcher I have is for this build. But my point is, the most important thing is just getting that specific type of rocket launcher. The rocket launcher I'm using is like perfect for this build, for the type of heavy weapon you want, because it has a fast fire rate with a large magazine, which is what you want to maintain the ammo infinitely. If you try and use any of these lower mag, slow firing heavy weapons, you're dealing with the RNG more against you, because yeah, it's like a 25% chance to get like 30% of your ammo back every like status effect. But if you're using like one of the like sniper heavy ordnances that just has 6 shots in it, you have to hope that one of the 6 shots will finally trigger, which is much less likely than if you have like 32 ammo in this rocket launcher, for instance, and it's firing like a lot faster, and it has an AoE, so it's hitting, and it has 2 shots, so the 2 shot actually both the shots can trigger the ammo restoration on it. So, but again, even if I didn't have a 2-shot before. I had a extended mag one, which was still great because it increased the mag, which increased the percentage of the ammo it would restore every time it would activate. So it was still easy to maintain infinite ammo with that rocket launcher too. Now, of course, if you have a minigun can maintain the ammo easily too, but my problem with the miniguns in this game is they're not as good for mobbing. They have a really high recoil. I don't like the amount of recoil you get. They throw your aim up to the stars so quickly. It's so annoying. They're better for bossing for sure, but I just like the rocket launcher is just the best of both worlds. It has great single target damage and great for mobbing, and then great for keeping your ammo topped off because it still has a decent magazine size and fire rate to maintain the ammo restoration. So rocket launcher I'd still argue is the best way to go for this kind of build. And yeah, in the future, like I have a double turtle on my shield, right? A double turtle armor, purple one would probably be the best. So yeah, really in the future, like I can see this build not using legendaries, period. And again, you can use a form of it without legendaries and still have it be OP. Now, the legendary gun I am using is it is the perfect gun for now, because if I ever don't have like a couple instances when I'm not using my rocket launcher, the superconductor thing I'm using is the best because it has shock on it to deal with shields, which is the biggest weakness I've noticed usually for builds like this in this game. Also, but then it can switch to radioactive to deal with the other effects. But the most important thing is the fact that it's a fast firing elemental gun, which means that it activates the ammo and the shield restoration a ton as well. So if you're going to use a non-ordnance gun, then use one that activates statuses on a build like this so you can further keeping your shield topped off if you need to. And of course, it in turn has infinite ammo too, since it's restoring its ammo. But yeah, I use the beam toss for all the other guns because it's like, dude, if they're just great for just raw damage is the beam toss shotgun. So if you ever do get those alts on guns, yeah, like I've considered just using all four, just because I use my ordnance launcher so much now that it's like, you know what, I could probably just drop the legendary gun and just get a fourth shotgun with beam toss. Just instances where I have to wait like a few seconds for my ordnance launcher, that is when I just cycle all four of the beam tossers, and as you see, they can do a crazy amount of damage. They actually do more damage than my ordnance launcher if I were to like use all four at the same time against like a boss. So and the damage they do scales off the gun damage buffs. The last thing I showed in my specialization tree, which is not done either. So this build's damage is still not done, because the specialization tree you see is from my previous melee build. I need to change it. I showed the grayed out ones at the end of this video. If you noticed, I started to hover over the ones I plan to replace, which is the one. So I plan to get rid of the 50% action skill damage off gun damage, and the gun damage when I'm aiming down my sights, which both at least help this build. That's why I use them, but not as much as the two I'm going to get, which is increasing ordnance damage based off your gun damage. So that for sure I want to get. And then there is another one where increase the riddle you this, where it increases your gun damage by just shooting with guns, and also your ordnance, a heavy weapon ordnance, the rocket launcher applies as a gun, just so you know. So when I get riddle you this, my rocket launcher will constantly be increasing my gun damage, which would constantly be increasing the ordnance damage on the rocket launcher through that passive, and then increasing the ordnance damage off my taunting, my widespread AoE from my shield. That's keeping the aggro of enemies. So yeah, that'll be the final change to this build for sure. That will further increase its damage even more. And then I might be able to kill like this same boss in like 20 seconds, which on a mostly pure tank build is actually really crazy, I think, if I can kill him that fast on a build like this. And yet I am completely immortal now in this game. And I am a classic tank. I actually draw aggro. I actually support my team. My taunt taunts the enemies, of course, in a wide radius. It freezes them. It applies weakness debuff to them that helps teammates too. And I restore my teammates' health for what that's worth too. So it's the perfect tank support build, I feel like now. So anyway, I've been ranting too much now, so let me just finally be done. You'll see probably more videos of this build, but yeah, this build is officially my favorite Amon build, replacing my melee tank. Now, next week, they said they plan to increase melee damage in various ways, so I might revisit it. I might go back to the other video of my melee tank and either use the same build or figure out a way to tweak him a little bit with my current gear, with whatever they might change in the game to make him at least equivalent to this guy. Because I still love him. You feel like Doom Guy playing the melee dude. So I really want to buff him further as well in the future so I can enjoy going back to him too and have both this build and my melee build, both being invincible tanks but in different ways. And then finally, I'll probably play Raph. I'll finally play a different character soon at some point, but I don't regret spending this much time on Amon because it allowed me to really get acquainted with the game's mechanic, get acquainted with the loot system for when I do start a new character, so I know what to expect now. And how elements and all that stuff works, so I know how to read the other characters' skill trees better when I get to them. And that way, I just end up creating my perfect tank endgame build that I can always go back to whenever I start another character, finally. And, one last thing I have to mention, I almost forgot, is that, since I was trying to go into this build in depth, the class mod I'm using is what is absolutely critical to the synergy. To the synergy of having your action skill constant forever in combat, you absolutely have to get a class mod that has the action skill duration buff on it, and then at least, if not all 5, a lot of points into the rep kit cooldown, the rep kit bonus duration to action skills in the blue tree. So in order to get this synergy where you can either have an infinite Onslaughter melee build or an infinite Scourge build in this case, you need that class mod, because if you go full blue tree and you don't have that and you try to just you try to spend all 5 points or all 10 points into boosting action skill duration and then rep kit duration, as much as possible, it won't be enough. Like, you will not be able to maintain an infinite. I already tried that. Even if you have a triple bypass mini, like with a 16-second cooldown on it, it's not enough because your rep kit doesn't recharge enough percentage of your duration for it to be forever. So you have to get a class mod that boosts that most. The most important thing, as you can see in my skill tree, the most important thing is boosting the rep kit's duration, because I actually went through the math too when I was I've tinkered with this so much. You've seen it. I sometimes go more points into the action skill duration and sometimes go more points into the rep kit duration. And after tinkering with it and pulling out my calculator and, doing the percentages that it tells you and, comparing it to the percentage that my rep kit would give me based off the duration of my skill, all those different percentages to keep in mind, the rep kit one by far helps you maintain your action skill duration more than action. Like, increasing the amount of duration bonus that the rep kit gives you helps you maintain your action skill forever a lot better than just increasing your action skill duration. That still helps, and the reason the class mod is so critical to have action skill duration is because it gives you a whopping 45%, which is just a huge amount. That 45% combined with because think about it, it's how math works. The rep kit cooldown increases. The skill node for the rep kit means that your rep kit increases your action skill based off a percentage of the duration. However, if you increase the percentage of your actual duration itself, that in turn increases how much duration the rep kit gives you. So they both feed on each other. But in that loop, I could tell after a lot of testing that the rep kit one, increasing the amount the rep kit gives you, just helps you more mathematically maintain your action skill a lot better than increasing just your flat duration itself. So if you can, you want to try and get the rep kit one. You don't need the exact same class mod I'm using, but getting some sort of class mod, like the 10% ordnance critical chance and the health regen is next to useless on it. And even the other skill nodes it gives me are mostly useless. When it comes to the purple class mod I use, the most important thing is that it just has the 45% action skill duration and it has the 5-point boost into the rep kit duration. That's the most important thing by far. But for that reason, this build can actually get better in the future potentially, because you can potentially find that same class mod I'm using, and have it roll with like 30% ordnance damage with everything else. Have it roll with that. Have it roll with Ordnance cooldown. Ordnance crit chance is nice, but the thing is, I'm not building into crit damage, so that's why I say it's mostly useless. I will say this, it makes this build, that 10% Ordnance critical chance does make helping co-op people get to UVH3 really well, because it does help with some wildcard missions whenever they have the 1 crit wonder enemies. So whenever you have enemies that can only be killed by crits, that's when I'm grateful to have that on my class mod, because not only does it make my rocket launcher have a 10% chance to crit with every hit, and it's a 2-shot one, so pretty much in a few strikes I'm instant killing anything with a 1 crit wonder on it. However, the taunt thing I send out, it applies to that too. So every taunt hit on an enemy also has a 10% chance to crit, which means it would have a 10% chance to instant kill mobs of enemies that is hitting during the 1 crit wonder. That thing. That annoying thing that everybody hates. So I had to mention that too. But yeah, had to mention last thing, the most important thing, of course, is the class mod.